For Inside Carolina, I'm Taylor Vippolis, and this is Up in the Rafters, where I'm joined by Carolina basketball legend and 2017 national champion, Justin Jackson. Justin, this past week, Carolina beats the College of Charleston last Friday, and then by the slightest of margins, beats Gardner-Webb by 6 on Tuesday. What are your early season thoughts watching this team?
Um, they get out to a slow start in the first half, um, and then they kind of turn it on in the second half. Um, I think their offense right now, I think their offensive, if you want to call it identity, I think they're still trying to find it, trying to figure out, um, what guys, they should get involved early and when. I think they're still trying to figure that out. I think defensively, um, I think they're still trying to tighten things up a little bit. Just like last time we were talking, it's way early in the season with these games where you're playing against, at least in your mind, teams that you're just more skilled, more talented than. Um, Sometimes you can kind of fall into a lull and play a different way than you probably would if you were playing against a Kansas or Duke or those type of teams. So I think like I said, I think it's still early, but they've got a few things on both sides of the floor that they've got to kind of tighten up and figure out a little bit.
The Gardner-Webb game, I thought we began to see some of Pete Nance's potential in the offense. He goes for 18 points. He steps back 3 of 5 from three. What did you see from him that got him going?
Yeah, I mean, he looked comfortable. He was aggressive. He was shooting shots. Whenever he was open, he wasn't second guessing them. And I think that's big. We talked about trying to fill, the spot that Brady, had for the team last year offensively, and they're going to need him to, do something similar to that, each game to provide something and take the load off of the other, three offensive weapons that are on the team. So I think it was good to kind of see him get out there and get aggressive. Hopefully he keeps that. Obviously I wouldn't say that we, pencil him in for 18 points every single game. But to give some sort of offensive threat from that spot, I think is big for this team. So hopefully he goes in each and every game and plays as aggressive as he did.
Yeah, he had 16 points at the half, 2 points in the second half. In his post-game press conference, Coach Davis was pretty upset that Nance only had 2 shots in the second half. He said, if I had 16 in the first half and only 2 in the second half, there would be some discussions with my teammates. He said, a long, long time ago when I played, if I had 16 in the first half, my teammates are going to screen and get me the ball to continue to do that. So he was visibly upset that the guys weren't really getting Nance involved in the second half, especially after that great first half that he had. As a team, how aware do you have to be for situations like that when a player like Nance is in a rhythm and carrying you offensively?
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where you just kind of feel how the game is going. There wasn't really many other guys that had it going like Pete had it. So obviously most of the guys once you come out in the second half, you want them to be aggressive as well to try to get their games going a little bit. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we got to just keep feeding the hot hand. They were showing that they couldn't really guard Pete in different situations. And so you just got to keep going back to that because the more and more that he's able to do that, the more it opens up for, RJ, Caleb, Armando, and everybody else. So I think it's just kind of feeling how the game is going. I know from my years at Carolina, my sophomore year when Bryce had it going, there was a couple of times we didn't keep feeding him, but when he had it going, it was like, all right, like let's just keep giving him the ball, force feeding him until they can do something to change and try to stop him, and then that'll just open it up for everybody else. So, I think obviously it's one of the first few games that he's even played with this group. So, hopefully after seeing that and playing in that kind of game with Pete being aggressive and getting it going like that, hopefully they can pick up on it sooner next time.
Coach Davis mentioned setting screens for people. You've mentioned the the Marcus Page. He's a pretty good player. Let's get him some shots. What is Coach Davis like in those behind the scenes for the fans that never will get to experience those in locker room conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also different. Fans have to realize too. Coach Davis was actually a player. Like he played in North Carolina. He played 10+ years in the NBA. So when he speaks on things, he's speaking basically from experience. And so, like you said, we've talked about it multiple times, but there'd be multiple times when he was an assistant with us and he would, Marcus would have it going, or maybe he didn't have it going, and we were trying to get him going. And we'd come into the locker room at halftime and he basically tell us, hey, like, we need to get this guy going. Like, set screens, get him open. So I'm sure, I don't know what it would look like as far as, trying to get Pete Nance going. He's not necessarily running off down screens and wide actions and stuff like that, but I'm sure it was pretty similar. Like, from here on out, whoever has it going, I'm pretty sure he's saying, hey, look, this guy's pretty good. Like, we need to get this guy going for our team and for himself. So, like, let's run different actions. Let's set screens. Let's get him involved. So I think it's always easier as a player, too, to be able to connect with somebody that's been there before. So I'm sure the guys will, respond to whatever he has to say pretty well.
Yeah, and Coach Davis, after that Gardner-Webb game specifically, he was happy that the team won, but I think he does see so much room for this team to grow. And he mentioned that there wasn't any red flags for this team, but there were a few yellow flags and questions that he has about this current group. And it was toughness, sustained effort, commitment to defense, commitment to the scouting report and doing the things that you're asked to do, getting to the offensive glass, and then sharing the basketball. What have you seen so far through 3 games that might worry you the most out of some of those things that Coach Davis kind of touched on?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's kind of one on both ends. I think the sustained effort on defense, I think is probably one of the biggest keys. This team has a lot of different guys that can pressure the ball, get in passing lanes, and really cause havoc on defense. But I think at times you kind of see them relax. There were a few times they had a couple drives. Gardner-Webb had a couple drives that were just not really contested. I think too, you've even seen a little bit on the offensive glass, which you wouldn't expect with Armando and Pete down there. Guys just kind of working a little harder to get hit the offensive glass. But then I think on offense too, which is in my opinion is kind of their strength. There is a lot of whether it is them trying to figure out how to play with each other or where to find people in certain spots. There is a lot of kind of one-on-one. Trying to go get yours type of basketball going on. And when they do move the ball, I mean, it's hard for teams to stop them. And so I think trying to figure that out and trying to figure out, okay, if I'm Caleb, okay, when can I be aggressive, right? If I'm in transition, I got the ball, okay, let's go get a bucket. Or, if I've got it going and, I've hit 2 or 3 shots in a row, all right, let me go get this fourth. And the same thing for RJ and Mondo and everybody else. So, I think if they can kind of figure that side of the ball out, I think it's going to be hard for teams to really guard them.
The commitment to the scouting report comment from experience, is there anything that makes a coach more upset than not following the scouting report?
There's not anything that makes the coach who does the scout, there's nothing that makes them more upset. Back to when I was at school, CB was like the most chill person ever. But when it was his scout and we messed up on something that he said in the scout, he wasn't very happy, and he let you kind of see it a little bit. So I think it goes for every level of basketball, to be honest. Like when a coach says something or puts something down for you to know, and you go out there and you either mess it up or you don't pay it. It's a way to make the coach not very happy. So it was, and whatever they didn't, apply, they probably should go ahead and try to pay attention to that, because coaches either really like it whenever you pay attention, or the complete opposite if you don't.
Yeah, it's like the coach is giving you a blueprint. And Coach Davis in his press conference mentioned, I forget how he phrased it exactly, but he said something like, it's harder for you to not follow what we're telling you to do than just following the scouting report. So, from your playing, like, what are some of the reasons why somebody might not follow the scouting report? Are they just kind of defaulting back to what they think they should be doing instead of following like the coach's plan?
Yeah, I mean it's tough because as a basketball player, when you go out there, like you just go out there and you play, right? Like certain guys' tendencies, certain plays because you've walked through them. But then once the game kind of gets flowing, then it's kind of okay. I'm just out here playing basketball, and at times you can forget. Okay, this guy really likes to reject the ball screen, right? And so you go to fight over a ball screen, and they might get you on a reject. Offensively, you might know that this guy likes to be aggressive with his hands when he's guarding you. So you might just be kind of lazy on one play and they might get a hand on a ball and take it the other way. So it's tough at times because as players, you just kind of get out there and you get in the flow of the game. But as long as you know going into the game what the tendencies are and some of their plays and kind of what they like to do, then you should be able to kind of stick to, the plan that the coaches have for you.
And last year for this North Carolina team, this team got significantly better when it went to that Iron Five mentality of playing that group for essentially the entirety of the game. The bench through 3 games for Carolina is averaging 8.3 points per game. You have a couple of true freshmen trying to come along. You have guys that are trying to figure out their roles. What would you like to see from that group for this team to reach its potential?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I think in college basketball, bench scoring, I think, isn't necessarily as important as you would see at other levels. I think as long as the bench is coming in and doing things that they need to be doing to help the team when they're on the court, I think that's the most important thing to watch. Because at the end of the day, they're not going to be playing, 20, 25 minutes a game. We've already kind of seen how Coach Davis likes to do it with kind of this roster, and those main 5 guys are going to play, 30 plus minutes. So as long as they can come in, as long as Seth can come in and he can, pressure the basketball, pick up full court, run the team when he comes in, make those kind of plays. Tyler, as long as he can, spot up, hit shots whenever he's open, play defense, kind of all of those type of things. And everybody else, they just come in and fill a role that needs to be filled. And I don't think it's as big of a deal when it comes to the scoring aspect. But obviously, you want to kind of see as time goes on, you want to see somebody from that, bench mob or whatever you want to call them. You want to see somebody kind of step up and be somebody that Coach Davis can rely on game in and game out. Because you've seen too that he hasn't really had somebody from the bench that he knows, okay, I can play him 10, 15 minutes every single game. He's kind of changed it up, who goes in when, who plays a certain amount. So hopefully somebody from that side can kind of, step up and show, okay, hey, I'm ready to be a big part of this team.
Yeah, one of the guys that Coach Davis seems to have a lot of trust in, RJ Davis. He mentioned RJ Davis was the heart and soul of this Carolina team. They'll kind of go as far as RJ will take them. He gets a double-double against Gardner-Webb. He was the team's leading rebounder. What do you think that says about Davis, that he's this 6-foot point guard and he's the one getting double-figure rebounds, and kind of his example that he could set for the team?
Yeah, I mean, it just shows that he's willing to do anything for the team, right? I mean, when you look at the Gardner-Webb game, there was a lot of long rebounds that kind of land in like the free throw line area, that kind of stuff. And instead of him leaking out, obviously he stayed in there. Okay, get the rebound secured and let's go the other way. And so, I think that's a big thing. I think besides Armando, I think RJ is, probably the main guy that kind of keeps this team going forward. Obviously, we know how explosive Caleb is and what he can do, but I think when it comes to really keeping the team together and keeping, through the ups and downs and making sure that the team stays in the right path. I think RJ is huge for this team. So, obviously that's a good sign to see your point guard get in there and kind of mix it up a little bit. But I think it just kind of shows that he's here to win games. So I think that's big.
Yeah, Carolina plays James Madison on Sunday, and before heading to Portland for the Phil Knight Invitational. You've had experience in these early season tournaments. Think back to like the Maui Invitational. What is that like when you're going from games Chattanooga, Long Beach State to all of a sudden, other Power 5 teams, Oklahoma State, Wisconsin? What is that jump in competition kind of like?
Yeah, I mean it's fun, honestly. Like as a competitor and as guys that, you go to North Carolina for a reason, right? You go to these big time schools for a reason, and that's to play in big time games. And so, as fun as it is to get out here and play against, exhibition games and all that kind of stuff, to finally be able to, okay, we're putting this jersey on, we're playing against a Power 5 school, right? Like this team is good coming in. I know my junior year, we had some games early on. And when we went to the Maui, our first big game was against Oklahoma State, and guys they were ready to go, right? Like you hear this guy is putting up these numbers, or these guys are this good, they beat this team by this much, and all this kind of stuff, and it just kind of gets you more fired up. So I think especially going to a tournament like this, which would be a super dope experience, playing in a Nike tournament like this Phil Knight Invitational. I think you just get going even more. So hopefully they come out with that competitive edge and that energy that needs to be had. And I'm looking forward to kind of watching them play against some of these teams.
Yeah, that Oklahoma State game, you guys ran them out of the gym. I'm looking at the box score right now. The final score in that game was 107 to 75. Joel Berry led the way with 24 points. You chipped in 22 points, 7 of 12 from the field. You guys as a team shot 58%. You're going to win a lot of games with that formula, I think.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'll never forget that because I think at the time it was Juwan Evans, I think, was their point guard. At the time, he was averaging like 30 something points at that time. And of course, in the scout and all that kind of stuff, that's all we really talked about. And we knew he was a really good player. And so I think everybody was pretty fired up to play that game and kind of, have our first low mark on the season. So yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, Juwan Evans still got his.
Yeah, he definitely still got his, no doubt. Like he was going to get his regardless.
Yeah.
It
it was really about limiting the rest of the team.
Yeah. Like it's almost like when you're playing against Luka. It's like, okay, you know what? We know he's going to get his 30, but let's try to limit everybody else. So that was kind of our mindset going into that game.
Yeah, we'll see how Carolina handles the James Madison game before going to Portland, where they'll take on either, I believe, Iowa State or Villanova. We'll be back next week to break it down. Justin, appreciate the time and appreciate everybody listening or watching.